When did faking it actually work out for you? I was sitting on the cold nurse's bench, staring at a poster about flu symptoms while tapping my fingers against the metal edge. My legs were swinging, but my mind was racing. I wasn't actually sick, not yet, but I needed to look like I was. It all started with my stepdad. Ever since he married my mom, he treated me like a problem. I'd say I felt dizzy or had headaches, and he'd call me lazy. Once I threw up after gym, and he laughed and said I was faking it for attention, and the worst part was my mom believed him. Every single time. At first, I thought maybe I was weak or just sensitive, but one day, I overheard him talking to his friend in the kitchen. He laughed and said,
"That kid could win an Oscar with how dramatic they are."
That stung more than anything. So I decided if he thought I was such a great actor, maybe it was time I gave him a real performance. I picked a condition that was hard to diagnose, something scary but subtle, a neurological thing that caused fainting, shaking hands, and blank staring. It sounded real enough to work. I spent the whole night reading symptoms, watching videos, and practicing in front of the mirror with the door locked. I didn't want revenge at first. I just wanted someone to believe me. But now I wanted him to feel helpless, just like I did every time he laughed at me. So I made a plan. I started small. I'd hold my fork funny at dinner like my fingers didn't work right. I'd trip over nothing on the stairs and act confused afterward. Once, I walked into the living room and just stood there blinking like I forgot where I was. My mom asked if I was okay, but he said,
"Here we go again."
That was the moment I knew I had him exactly where I wanted him. At school, there was this family health event coming up. Parents were invited to meet with nurses and counselors. I had 2 weeks. That was my chance, so I kept practicing. I slowed down how I spoke, blinked less, and rubbed my eyes when the light was too bright. I even started shaking a little when I held my pencil. Some kids started noticing. One girl asked if I was okay, and I said I didn't know. But that part was actually true. The night before the event, I couldn't sleep. I kept running through what could go wrong. What if I messed it up? What if the nurse didn't believe me? I showed up wearing extra pale foundation to look sick. My hands felt cold, and my stomach was tight. When we sat down in the tiny room with the school nurse, she asked how I'd been feeling lately. I stared at the wall for a second, then blinked slowly and said, "Not good." My mom leaned in, and my stepdad crossed his arms. The nurse asked questions, and I answered like I'd practiced. Soft voice, shaky hands, eyes that looked empty. When she turned to my parents and asked if they'd noticed anything, my mom looked worried, but he rolled his eyes. The nurse said she needed to bring in a specialist to take a closer look. That's when he snapped and said,
"This is ridiculous."
But she ignored him and wrote something down. 2 days later, everything changed. The school counselor called my mom and said the specialist filed a report. Not just about me, but about him. Emotional neglect, verbal cruelty, a pattern of behavior that needed attention. The report went to child services. That night, my stepdad exploded. He yelled, slammed the door, and said it was all a scam. My mom didn't say a word. She just stared at him. She didn't defend him or deny it. He packed a bag and left the next day. Said he needed space, but he never came back. For the first time in years, the house felt quiet, but not in a scary way. I could breathe. My mom started paying attention again. She asked how I was feeling. She took me to real doctors just to be sure. And even though I didn't have that condition, I did have something else, anxiety. Turns out, pretending to be sick was the only way I ever got help. Some days I think about what I did and wonder if it was wrong. But then I remember how many times I cried in my room while he called me names and said I was faking it.